Hello, my friends, checking the audio. Welcome to the patron hangout discussion of Disharmony. Jack and I just did a rewatch of this that is linked down in the description below if you are watching this in replay. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be watching a Buffy episode, and I already forgot the name of it because goldfish brain.
Intervention.
Intervention, thank you. Before we get started, Sarah has a quick rundown of rules and requests that we have regarding this discussion and the attendees. Sarah, take it away.
Hey, so the rules basically, we want this place to be respectful. So I'm just gonna straight up say, don't comment on people's appearance, apart from Jack, who has consented to us praising his prettiness. But let's just keep it simple and just say no commenting on people's appearance. Backgrounds you can comment on, because and generally be polite. And this is going to be a fully spoiled discussion. So that about covers it, I think. Oh yes, and listen to the mods if we ask you to change a subject or move on. We're just trying to keep the conversation going, and we're just doing our best. So just don't argue with us.
Yeah, especially, we realize that certain conversations are inevitable with certain episodes, but especially when it's a light and fluffy one, we don't need to be talking Seeing Red. And that's a note to me, this guy who brings up Seeing Red at the drop of a hat. So yeah, let's do it that way. Who was the caboose the last time? I think it was Jack?
No, it was me.
Oh, hi. Well, here we are, and I forgot to get the timer up in order to get us out of here in around 2 hours. I try and give everyone about 10 minutes to talk. I forgot to mention that. We all know the deal. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hey, I am very good. I finished my thesis project.
Congratulations.
I had 2 days of crashing.
Yeah, that crash.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it. The fact that you have to pay the piper when you spend everything in the tank is a pain in the tuchus.
It is, and hopefully I'm at some point. It was something that Ren and I worked on. And at some point we're going to release it to the public.
Cool.
We did a podcast of fat people discussing fat people in film. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is a little self plug, and it plug that I have a thing coming out tomorrow that Ian will be fashionably late for.
As per my normal, actually, if you want to mention it and where people can go to see it, mine will be up sometime in the middle of next week, hopefully.
Yeah, well, mine is it is, I thought we need some hope in the world.
Always.
So and especially like now things are, do I have to say? So yeah, I think we all need hope. So my idea was to have like a thing. It's like an assignment that I just gave to people I know who do this stuff, to make an essay about some scene in all of media that says something to you about hope. So there's a podcast, there's a playlist now of, I think we're at 6.
Wow.
So far, that'll be going live tomorrow. There's a couple larger YouTubers involved. James Summerston did a remarkable, and he went totally extra. It's cool. Mine is about Epiphany, so it's actually about Angel.
Oh, awesome.
And there will be more coming.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a thing where, and anybody who's inspired wants to make a video, I'll add it to the list if they email it to me. So
yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it. I have this big thing about, I mean, you know me, I haven't watched anything yet because I'm waiting until like my whole thing is done, but I can't wait to dive into the list. Oh, and what is the name of your channel where people can find the playlist? Did I miss that?
It is the Costume Codex.
Okay. There you go.
And Lonnie will also be doing something.
Lonnie is participating. I am participating. Sir Jack is participating. So yeah, check it out. But let's talk
about Harmony.
Disharmony and Mr. David Fury. This is boy, watching this on the heels of having finished Crush or been working on Crush for a month. Boy, does he have a flavor. It's most like Jane Espenson's. Jane has fewer go fishes, I think, than David has in the group, but they have that same sense of delight for me, I guess, or unexpected comedic timing.
Yeah, and they both definitely like playing with some of the smaller characters, like Harmony.
So tell me about the episode. Where do you land on this one?
I find this one pretty delightful. Not as delightful as Harm's Way, but I love Harmony, and I think it's fun when she turns up. And I think we kind of need a bit of marshmallow fluff at this point in the season. Yes. But I also think that the episode actually does serve a thematic purpose, because like the whole season is sort of like this, who am I and where do I belong? And so far, Epiphany has answered where do I belong, which was set up in Guys Will Be Guys. And I think Disharmony sort of focuses us on now where do I belong, because that's Harmony's question, and that is the question that Angel is sort of trying to figure out, and I think Wes and everybody is sort of trying to figure out for the rest of the season. I think that's a lot of what Pylea is about.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the thing that struck me is that a lot of times David is a little more heavy-handed with the metaphor stuff, and Disharmony is just kind of nice. I think that it's a plot that applies to that, but doesn't force that into the plot, is the way it feels. And I think that's ideal.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, it's completely blunt about what it's doing, the where do I belong.
Yeah.
But because it's through Harmony, it's kind of like bluntness with cotton candy. It's just kind of,
which is in some ways the best. Yeah.
I mean, the cult as the cult into multi-level marketing is pretty blunt too, but it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. And I love the sort of, there's a whole like, what is the nature of this and that Angel's been doing this big broody thing, and Harmony is just like, I am evil, I'm just not very good at it.
Yeah, and the way that mirrors onto Angel is what? I'm good, I'm just not very good at it. He's also not very good at being evil.
He was very good at being evil.
Well, Soulless Angel was very good at being evil. He's sort of non-committal. The sadistic would be, it was kind of the, well, I don't know. Gray Angel is all I'm talking about. Is by nature, Angelus would have been embarrassed, I think. Angelus would have been like, I could have done better.
Yeah, but Angelus probably thinks that about absolutely everything.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I think her Harmony's Gray Angel phase is like the portion of time when she's singing.
She does go sober in season 5 for a while before the wagon takes a sharp turn and she falls right off at the end of the season. But she does a good job for a little while there. I think it's interesting. We always talk about Spike and Angel as the sort of representative two sides of, and I don't want to go too deeply into it, but the soul canon question, one throws a wrench into the other one's the perceived representation of the soul canon that they're both representing. And yet Harmony is a very interesting take on sort of choice and desire to belong, and the perceived surface level altruism, the question of like, what is a moral act? gets complicated. Is what I was trying to get at in Crush, the review for Crush, which I think applies to Harmony in a very interesting way as the seasons go on. Eventually, she falls into which Angel warns Cordy of in this. Eventually, she's going to betray, but he seems ready for it in Not Fade Away, certainly.
Yeah, because she never tries. She doesn't think things through particularly.
No.
At all.
Yeah.
No matter what she's doing, which is a wonderful foil for Angel, who must think through all things, must brood, must be intense and everything, and opera versus Katy Perry. And I love the contrast.
It's funny. I think I most identify with Angel's personality that way, but would be more prone to listen to Katy Perry. So I got a little lost in the metaphor there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that any of it. I'm sure that there's I could do a whole thing about how she's kind of girl boss feminism, and it's just not very deep.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is I was wondering how this discussion was going to go today because, it's a Harmony episode. It fits well into the arc, as you were saying, but she's Harmony, and that's kind of the delight, is sort of WYSIWYG, the aspect of her role in the series. The one thing I definitely noticed was, which I don't know if you have a comment on it one way or another, but her styling in the opening sequence feels distinctly different than Buffy. When she walks in on Cordy in the Hyperion, and the way her hair is sort of done across the top and all of that, and it's just interesting to think about the two different designers that I'm not sure if that is the costume designer's purview.
That's what you do after a breakup. You change your hair. you try and get a new look, and then it doesn't work so well, and you end up with your hair wrapped in a towel, eating ice cream and doing your friend's toenails.
Are she and Spike that couple that just keep breaking up and getting back together? Because I hadn't thought because I never thought about them as I think about her burning his stuff before the slap fight with Xander as the breakup, and then she comes back. Then it's just sort of, I don't know. I see. I'm putting too much thought. It's Disharmony.
Well, Harmony has to have somebody, a strong personality. She's a follower. That was that's who she was when she was one of the Cordettes. And, clearly she didn't find anybody else. She tried to have minions. So, I think that's sometimes you do end up going back to the boy who doesn't really want you. And no, that's such a shame. And then you gotta leave and go get yourself a new haircut.
And you can say goodbye to this.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, do you have anything else for us on Disharmony?
No, I don't have anything.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, Sarah. Well, I appreciate you. Boris. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, David Greenwald, David Fury. I do that all the time and constantly. The Greenwald commentary for Reptile Boy, I think, is actually pretty great. Also, Reptile Boy feels vaguely like a David Fury episode to me. I don't have a strong sense of what Greenwald's flavor is. You know the flavor of a Doug Petrie episode. You know the flavor of a Jane Espenson. Greenwald's to me,
he's kind of a grab bag, I think.
Yeah,
he's a mishmash of stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's why. Also, David and I transpose names constantly, so that makes sense to me. But Disharmony, tell me about the episode.
Well, I think it's pretty neat. I like it a fair amount. Yeah, I guess since we're going on the Harmony thing. I very much feel like her character is very much a case of like it's kind of the case of, you know, the Scorpion and the Toad story.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
that is very much on par with what this episode feels like. And Angel's warning her, yes, she's going to betray you.
Yep, that's again, like, even if it's against the thing's better nature, it's like it's gonna screw you over eventually. And yeah, like, and I really like how that's consistent even as we get to season 5, because like it's very much this episode very much feels like the precursor to season 5 in some ways in that regard. And I do like how, like, as kind of wishy-washy as like this back end of season 2 is, like, pretty much every episode is important for like the rest of the series, pretty much. Like, you know, for various reasons. I don't know how much to say because there was someone in the chat who might be unspoiled.
Well, we go with spoilers, the spoiler rule for people in the meeting. So this is a completely spoiled discussion. Everyone in the chat who is listening, so you're fine.
All right. Yeah, it's just there was one person in the chat, but yeah. So it's kind of funny how like Angel will use that whole betrayal thing to his advantage later on. So that's good. So yeah, the other thing I thought they were kind of doing with Harmony here is that, like, the thing with the Cordy and her is kind of like a mini parody of the Darla situation, in that, like, someone from Cordy's path comes in, and, you know, she sees an opportunity to, like, you know, she can do better. You know, we can work on this, but it just doesn't work out.
And then invading her bedroom is, if you're looking for parallels between the two, yeah, there's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah. So yeah, it's nice that we kind of have that parallel going on, and I think it helps, like, maybe give Corey a bit more empathy for Angel's situation a little bit, just like, okay, because like before she was like, just let Darla die, it's gonna be okay.
Well, that's an interesting question. Is there a lesson learned from this that she needed to learn?
Perhaps like a little bit, just like maybe just to get some perspective, where it's like, you know, it is tempting to try and help your old friends and maybe find some redemption for yourself in a way, but, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and that kind of sucks. And also, I was just thinking while we were talking, like, there's almost kind of a Harley Quinn situation going on with Harmony here, where it's like she broke up with the Joker, pretty much. Was trying to do her own thing.
Goes to kind of get a birds of prey situation going.
Yeah. Harmony's not going to get the spinoff though. Although I have wondered, like, what she was doing between seasons 3 and 4 though. That'd be an interesting story.
Might have been at Wolfram and Hart already. She struck out for herself in L.A. Maybe there were Wolfram and Hart members at the pyramid situation. They're like, man, this Wolfram and Hart thing's not going to work out. I need to somehow make some money for myself.
Yeah. And I guess that leads us to the pyramid scheme, which is wonderful. I love the pyramid scheme so much.
Brilliant, yeah.
It's so great on so many levels. And you can even use that office clip where Jim is like, it's pyramid scheme. That would be great. So, and it's so great because the pyramid schemes in like whatever thing, it's like, it's an unsustainable system, basically. It is designed to, like, so the top stay in power, and just like, and like you're spreading things out, and it's all like, and it's like, because when you keep making salesmen, eventually you're going to run out of people to sell to. So, and essentially it's the same thing with the vampires. Like, once you make enough vampires, it's like, oh no, we're going to run out of humans soon. That's not good. So,
that's interesting.
And this guy
at that level.
Yeah. And this guy has been like, you know, he's literally putting himself in the white robes, and he's got his crazy mustache. And it's just like, you know, I know what I'm doing. He's taking advantage of the people, you know, all the self-help and stuff. It's all very interesting.
That guy's performance too is nicely underrated in this episode. The mustachioed cult leader vampire,
Tony Robbins, basically.
He has an incredibly familiar, affable flavor for that type of character. It's a nice little performance that guy gives in this one.
Yeah. It's very good. And this whole situation with the cult is like, it definitely has some Wolfram and Hart vibes too, because it's kind of this combination of capitalism, the evils of capitalism, comrade. and like and the cult like mentality because with Lindsay, it was the whole. Which yeah, that was another thing. It's like this kind of has some Lindsay parallels too in a way, but like Holland was very much approaching Lindsay in a cult like way. It's like it's like nobody has their own lives. We're all part of something larger, and again, like, and we kind of see that here. It's like you're taking people's insecurities and you're giving them comfort and take.
Well, Holland has that sort of. I mean, he's playing the surrogate father for Lindsay. There's an intimacy there that feels uncomfortable in a professional situation. But I mean, how professional a situation is Wolfram and Hart. But his demeanor with Lindsay is sort of taking him under his wing and speaking to him very much like this. Lindsay, it's all right. We're going to think you're going to be a member of our happy family. It's this warm, soothing, and yet somehow disturbing kind of thing that is. Oh, we miss him. Definitely miss. Gone but never forgotten.
The legend. The wonderful fellow. And yeah, so I guess
he'd probably be in my list of side characters I wish had gotten longer runs in the series. The sure. Snyder list. Snyder got 2 seasons, but still.
That was 3, but yeah. Oh yeah, I also kind of like how you have the symbol of like the snake, and then it just turns out that was just a 2 from his pyramid. So
I missed that. I missed that detail.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. They don't like bring too much attention to it. It's just like I do also appreciate they actually wrote like a proper article for like when they were looking at him up on the computer. Like they didn't just copy and paste some nonsense, so that was good. And I guess just to kind of circle back to Angel, because we might be winding up on this soon. One, I like how that puzzle with the red light, where it's like Corey's looking for that bird, and it's like, oh no, well, it kind of looks like it, but it's not red. But then like Angel turns on the red light, and then that's how he figures it out. It's like that's clever. It's a nice little thing. And yeah, so this is the post Epiphany Angel. And I get to circle back to Epiphany a bit because I didn't get to be in that discussion. Tim Neer was too powerful for us all. And
well, we were already at 10 actually when Tim showed up, and
that makes sense.
Jack said, "I know we're at 10, but Tim Minear is in the lobby. Ian, do you want me to let him in?" Yeah. So yeah, we went a little over in that one. All I'm saying.
It's valid. And then because Angela is discussing with Lauren in the episode, he's like, I don't know how to get back. And Lauren's like, well, that's just the thing. You don't do that. And as we kind of have him just like, it really was great just having Wesley be the boss for this. Like, it was like the perfect conclusion for that arc pretty much. I just approve of like, it made sense for Wes's character and just to give Angel the whole like.
Yeah, I think the plot move of making Wes the boss is a wonderful one. It's a wonderful way of developing the other characters, the ensemble, in a way that Buffy doesn't. In a lot of ways, doesn't. And I think the later seasons of Buffy suffer for that at times. Season 7 specifically, where the Scoobies feel like they have less to do. Because in contrast, the season 5 of Angel, I mean, Cordy's situation aside, I think that most everyone with certain problems has a sparkling arc in that season. And I think that's because of the groundwork they lay for stuff like this, which is letting Angel take a supporting role at times and not be so centrally featured.
Yeah. Yeah, like I definitely think with the Pylea arc, we're kind of solidifying the show as more ensemble now, which I think is pretty neat. Like, it's not that Angel's unimportant or that he was bad. It's just we're just kind of doing a few different things. We're spreading our wings.
Well, it's a different show. It's a different show.
And it's not that what we had before was bad. We're just doing something new.
Right. And they, in some regards, maybe they leaned away from Buffy too hard in the first season. And then, sort of one of the strengths or the character is the comedy and the character development and the chemistry, which is what Buffy's good at as well. And then letting the ensemble be a little more featured because they're not hard metaphors for aspects of Angel in the same way that the Scoobies are for Buffy, which if you stray away from certain plots could break down. So you're sort of stuck within a mold when you do that. Really paid off well for Angel as a series, for sure.
And I guess just one last little thing that I thought was fun. I liked that they went in the intro. They gave him like his desk, and he has like a little mug with that pencil mug, but it has like daisies on it. So they're just messing with him. So it's very cute.
That's good. Good direction.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Like most of the things in this episode are kind of like there's not really stuff to read into it, but it's very broad to where like you don't necessarily need a lot of time to go into it. But it's a good episode. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's super solid. All right, bud. Let me go over to Josh, Sir Josh, with Daddy behind him. Very distracting. Hi, Josh. How's it going?
It's going good. I'm hastily finishing chewing my Ghirardelli chocolate. Ghirardelli chocolate. They take a little while to chew.
Hashtag not a sponsor.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Oh, you want me to vamp for a minute so you can... I'm good. I'm working on a video for Her, the movie, a review that I've wanted to do for several years, but I have a complicated feelings about that movie. And actually feel like I've gotten to the point where I have enough tools in the toolbox to write about it.
You're constantly evolving.
Unfortunately. Never mind. Josh, tell me about Disharmony.
I love Disharmony. It's one of the episodes that I just cackle my way through. The direction is so fun. The little like the office pranks and the office hazing that they put Angel through, like treating him like he's the intern now, just always makes me crack up. And I love the pan like from shot to shot down the line as they're walking across the sidewalk. And
the timing on that is so great.
It's such a classic cartoony kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I love it. But Disharmony for me also, Boris actually had some points that I agree with, but in a way that I hadn't really thought of before. So for me, anytime there's a vampire as the antagonist on Angel, the vampire is some version of Angel.
Okay. Oh yeah. I could see that structure for sure.
All the way back to the pilot. I mean, Russell likes pain. He likes it a lot and jealous. Marcus was a bloody king of torture and jealous. And then Spike, of course, was like a consequence of Angel's actions. Penn was like a version of Liam. Anyways, anytime there's a vampire antagonist, they're Angel. So there's two vampire antagonists in this episode, and I love the structure of that because there's Harmony and there's Doug, pyramid cult leader Doug.
Yeah,
it's a name that strikes fear into the hearts of children everywhere. And so Harmony, though, what I like about the structure of it is kind of like what Boris was saying. Like this episode is really like a Cordy episode. This episode is about Cordy's resentment and not being able to forgive Angel. And I always read it as like Harmony demonstrated to Cordelia that Angel is capable of change by showing her that Harmony wasn't. That Angel is capable of like actually genuinely apologizing and actually changing his behavior.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Just thinking about this. I would say if there are two main vampires in the series, it's Spike and Angel. If there are three, it's Spike, Angel, and Harmony.
Yeah, absolutely. And so by the end, when Harmony betrays them and Cordy actually gets to have a fist fight, that was fantastic. And it ends up with the crossbow at Harmony's throat. Like that's her like rejecting and jealous, and then Angel comes up behind her. And she gets her Cordy line of like, don't say a damn word, and she walks off or whatever.
Yeah.
But like Angel is capable of doing better and doing different. And this is the episode that lets Cordy realize that she can forgive Angel. Of course, the clothes kind of accelerate that.
There is an interesting rash of letting vampires go by this point in the series, though, isn't there? I mean, Buffy lets both Harmony and Drusilla go in Crush, And one of those is a much bigger deal than the other one. But she punches and then doesn't kill Spike. And then Cordy lets Harmony go here. Does that seem weird?
It does, because nobody let Jesse go.
Right.
No, but like, I mean, I've been singing the "Why Hasn't She Killed Spike" song for a while now.
Yeah.
And Cordy letting Harmony go, to me, like as an isolated case, makes perfect sense, because it's Cordy.
Well, sure, but Wes was there. Angel was there. I mean, the whole crew was there, and
Sure.
she still, Cordy didn't have to be the one to do the deed, is what I'm saying. If that was the issue,
But
you know.
they all respect Cordy's choices.
Okay. I mean, it's a finer point. Like, the thing of it is, the answer to it is, it's a funny episode. It's not a dark episode. That's the answer to the question, and that's one of the I think that's one of the places where the show gets is a struggle at times if you think too hard, which I do constantly and all the time.
Same. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. This is think too hard is anonymous.
Yes. Here to make steam come out of my ears as the hand runs out of breath. So I have, for a while now, as I've been watching Angel, kind of along with your guides and stuff, I've asked the question, what is the purpose of the visions? Like within the context of the show, what's the purpose of the visions? Because if Tashanshu demonstrated anything, it's not, the purpose of the visions is not really to save everybody.
No.
Because the powers that be are doing a lot of gatekeeping in what they send to Cordy.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose of the visions for me, watching each episode, is to show Angel something or to teach Angel something. And I talked about, at the beginning of season 2, that the powers that be are trying to save Angel from Darla, and ultimately from himself. But then in this episode, the vision specifically sends the team to Doug and his whole thing. And Doug, for me, is the other mirror of Angel in this episode. And it comes up especially when he and Angel are fighting, and Doug is like, "You've got to embrace your inner demon," as he's pummeling him in the face. And I double checked on it, and Angel never goes vamp face in this episode. He's actively suppressing his demon after having embraced too much darkness recently.
Yeah.
And so it's all about, as Pylea will demonstrate, balance. And Angel is still out of balance. He's just balanced in the other direction.
I'm just thinking about that reading in the context of the entire series. Yeah, from a wider perspective, the question of what purposes of the visions, to me, ends up being to bring about Jasmine.
Well, that's once Jasmine co-ops the visions, which happens in early season 3.
Okay, that has not happened yet at this point. That's
not from my reading of the show. But we'll get to the one with where Cordy's visions get brain hacked, and the dude gets off the fez and it's got his brain. And to me, the point of that episode is to show that from that episode forward, the visions cannot be trusted.
Interesting. Okay. I'd have to listen to Skip's little retconned speech that explains where all of the Jasmine threads are. But just in terms of my broader reading of the fiction, that's always kind of where I end up, because when the gates are all open, it is clear that there is an agenda at play for what to be shown when. And sometimes, it's clearly in service of Angel's journey, but where is that journey going and for what purpose, and so on and so forth, becomes the question. But I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched the Skip bit to kind of see where that begins. But I like that as a starting point, as a signal of these can no longer be trusted. Stupid powers speaking so vaguely.
The visions are sent to Cordy, but the visions are for Angel.
Right. And then they're just gone.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to throw out about Disharmony?
I mean, it's it's hilarious, and the fourth wall break that David Boreanaz throws in, when he's denying having slept with Darla, just like, throws me on the floor every time. I love it.
I think David is. We talk about we were talking about Alexis's slapstick. I think David is more of a Nathan Fillion comedy type.
Yeah.
And every chance he has to demonstrate those chops, it just seems so natural. He's so natural with the little comedy bits that he gets to have, the dance to everything else. It's nice to see. All right, bud. I appreciate you. Let's go over to Ray, and then I'll go to Tom. Ray.
Hi, guys.
Hi. How's it going?
Good. How about you?
Well, I'm here. I'm talking to Angel. I'm good.
Okay, good.
Were you at the last?
Mhm.
I can't. Okay, good. Okay, yeah. So just anywhere you want. It's a weird episode. I feel. I don't feel super helpful today in terms of what to add. It just is. It's a Harmony episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so funny because I know Angel so much less than I know Buffy. I think just because Angel was a little bit more of a grown-up show, like when I was watching it as a younger child person, it didn't grab me as much. I will say, going back now, I kind of cheat and I really don't start on rewatches. I don't start watching it until the Pylea episodes because Fred is my favorite character on Angel. So it's
Interesting.
I sometimes like cheat and don't watch episodes that she's not in because I'm just like, I just want to get to the Fred of Angel. But I will say, I mean, I love this episode. I love, anytime we see the depth of the Buffyverse and, seeing things cross over. So having Harmony in this episode, and if you're somebody who just watched Angel, you're hearing Harmony talk about this boyfriend, and it's enough to push the narrative along, but you don't get all the rich backstory. Like, we know exactly who her ex-boyfriend is, and the fact that she might be lying about, like, oh, he was smothering me, when it's like, we know that's not true. That's not how that relationship ended.
Well, we talked in one of the other conversations about most of the crossovers are pretty great. It was in Forever where Angel shows up on Buffy. Most of the crossovers are pretty great. The only weird one for me is Angel showing up in Chosen, given what's going on for him during the end of Angel season 4 is very strange. But yes, I love universe building episodes. The way the universe works is so interesting, and I have yet to dive into the ancillary content like the books and the comic books really deeply.
Yeah.
Because so much is tied to like the specific writers and the mutant enemy writers and so forth that I just worry about it. Have you ever gotten into any of the other content?
I have a weird relationship with the comics. I do a lot of cheating in this fandom where I like look up stuff about it, and so I like know what happens in the comics. But for me, graphic novels or comic books are just not a medium that I absorb very well. It's just not how I enjoy absorbing content. I prefer like books and TV shows, and it's a weird visual thing that my brain has a hard time wrapping my mind around. So
I'm with you.
Totally legitimate literature, though. If anybody says graphic novels aren't books, they're lying. They absolutely are. But yeah, they're just not a favorite form for me. And also, I don't like some of the directions that some of the comics took. So I have the luxury of accepting the canon in the comic books that I like and ignoring the canon that I don't. Because if it's not filmed, it doesn't need to be canon for me. So and that's how my dad views it. My dad, who introduced me to Buffy, he's like, nope, if they didn't film it, I don't consider it canon. If it's not on screen, it's not canon.
I feel very similar.
Yeah.
The Xander's bit about, it's me, a fun Uncle Xander, she's supposed to have a crush on me, is fine as a cute, low self-esteem guy who's just like, he wants to be the fun uncle. Then when you bring the comic book lore into it, it becomes very weird and a little bit creepy.
Oh, very creepy.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
I'd just absolutely hate it. I think I don't want to get too into any of the Whedon controversy, but I feel like there might
yeah.
have been some stuff there that just, I don't know, was sort of fulfillment on that part that I don't agree with, and I don't think was the right direction for the character, you know, regardless of anything outside of what was going on. I don't think Screen Xander would have done that per se.
No, I don't think so either.
So it just, that's where a lot of the disconnect for the comic books comes from me. But getting back to Harmony, some of the stuff in the comic books I think does make a lot of sense for her. And doesn't she become like a reality TV star or something and like champions for vampire rights?
In the comics, yes. Yeah.
So I think that's very fitting for her character. Like that is something where I go, my brain can accept that as something that would happen after Let's Go to Work.
You can see Harmony as a reality TV star for sure.
Or selling selling Sunset, but instead it's like selling, I don't know, moonlight or something. I don't know, because they can't see the sun, so they can't be there for a sunset.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to what Josh was saying, because I do this thing since watching your videos where almost every show I watch now, I look at the main character and I go, how are the side characters a reflection or like symbolic of this main character in some way? And I think the whole thing about Harmony and Angel being in similar positions in this episode is absolutely correct. I think I mentioned this in the chat, but it's like in this episode, Angel's returning to this group and Harmony is returning to Cordelia, and they've both sort of lost their way, you could say. And so they're both kind of sucking up and like kind of trying to fit in and being kind of like that loser friend that you have that like doesn't quite get the rules of the friend group, but you like, you know, you're like, you can get this, just, you know, work with us, we'll show you the right path. And sometimes they fail and sometimes they succeed. But I think in getting into the soul canon, because I think this episode is very interesting in terms of episodes that deal with soul canon, because I think what's an important distinction in this episode is we have these two vampires that are both lost and trying to find some sense of belonging. Angel has a soul, Harmony does not. Therefore, the soul, as the moral compass, if that's how we're reading this, he is able to understand Wesley's words of like, you can't buy your way in. There's no surface level way to get back into our trust again. You're going to have to sacrifice, and you know, you're gonna have to lay it on and prove to us that you're worthy of our trust again. And Angel, having a soul, is able to do that. Harmony, lacking one, cannot. And that's, I think, indicative of her, you know, turning on them. So I just think that that's such an interesting, and Josh put it way better than I did, but just such a way of demonstrating what the soul means in this canon and what it means in terms of, you know, trying to find a sense of belonging and understanding that you got to reach out to people and connect in a genuine way.
Yeah. The thing that I settled on is like, thinking about Crush and thinking about where Spike goes and being tortured and not giving up the key and all of that, there are a number of different actions of his that I think that you need to parse. And I think that Harmony is an interesting way of sort of showing the way that operates, which is that my point in the Crush video was that certain actions on the surface of them can look moral, but it's more about the intent of the person who's acting, right? Mm-hmm. Than it is the net result of the action itself. And for that reason, a vampire, if it is within their own self-interest, can do things that look good. Mm-hmm. Spike is a hopeless, dyed-in-the-wool romantic. Yep. And if he can't be with Buffy, possess Buffy because of the chip, then to die for Buffy is so hot right now. I mean, it's so sexy to just be a bleeding mess on behalf of the woman who refuses to love you, right? Mm-hmm. That looks moral. Because Spike's motivations are still pure self-interest, they're not. You know, mm-hmm. The moral compass to me is the ability to act in opposition to your own self-interest. Mm-hmm. The ability to make the choice, and human beings will do both. And I think that in this situation, Harmony, for a little while, looks like she's going to be good because it's within her own self-interest until that changes and then whatever. So it is a strangely revealing episode, as you say, of the way the soul canon works. But it is tricky because an action can appear differently than it actually is, and especially romantic sacrifices, love, which we automatically apply that moral ideology to that isn't actually there, necessarily. So, or rather, sometimes it's both and sometimes it isn't. So anyway, that was something that I was trying to unpack. And it's interesting what you bring up with this episode that, Harmony kind of lays bare, but it's so expected with her. And in a way, it makes it more clear than what David Fury was trying to do with Spike and Crush.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because this is something that human Harmony would have done.
Yeah.
And it's something that I just find so funny because in that scene when they bust into Cordy's apartment, which I have a continuity question about that scene, by the way.
Okay.
I'll ask that in a second. But they bust in on her and, they're like, you can't trust her. Like, this isn't your friend. And Wesley's like, that is a demon that has taken up shop, or, whatever his line is. And he looks at Harmony knowing this is Cordelia's friend and goes like, no offense. And Harmony just goes like, about what? And it just makes me I don't think that's the exact line, but it's just this sense of like, what did you say that was offensive? Which makes me think that the demon that inhabited her body is just as stupid as Harmony was.
Well, that or they have to play the hand they're dealt. In that particular situation. Liam has a intellect and cleverness for proving his father wrong, that he's special, and Harmony just doesn't care.
Yeah.
She is. That's the other thing too. She's the least dissimilar from her original self of any of the other vampires.
Which I don't know. I know your view on the soul canon has shifted a little bit since your season 2 discussions.
Yeah, definitely.
You were talking in those about like a template of a person. And it's sort of just why I've liked this idea that the demon who like set up shop, like maybe is just like found a home in Harmony because it's like, oh, this person's just as clueless about the world as I am. And
that or the demon from the first season, Under the Skin or whatever it was, would jump in Harmony and be like, "What's soul?"
Yes.
Who knows? But Ray, I do need to move on. Is there one last thing you want to throw out? You said you had a continuity question.
Yeah, and I sort of have a headcanon and answer for myself, but I just find it funny it's never answered in the episode. But they literally talk about Wesley and Angel in the Hyperion are talking about like how they can't go to these people's rescue because it's during the day. And then the very next moment they bust into Cordelia's apartment, which is still in the morning. So I'm assuming
they've done that during the day as well.
Yeah, I'm assuming he took the sewers. There's some sort of sewer access near her house. That's the, headcanon that I have. But it's just like literally the scene before they were talking about how Angel couldn't go outside because it was sunlight. And then the next scene, they go to Cordelia's where it's sunny.
Well, and you'd think that they could throw a blanket over his head a la Spike style at this point, but
just bring it just show how he got there. That's all I ask. Whatever. It's fine. The episode's almost 20 years old. I can get over it.
All right, good deal.
Thanks, guys.
Let me go over to Tom, and then I'll go to Lady Eternal. Tom.
Hello, Ian.
Hi.
All settled in?
Yeah, actually, yes. The degree that I'll go to, the degree that I'll go to not sit in a desk is kind of ridiculous. Being self-employed, I'm sitting in a recliner. There's a big arm attached to the shelf next to me with a monitor on it that swings back and forth. My goal is to be as much like the human beings from the end of WALL-E as possible. I'm surrounded by beverages. I have a giant screen in front of me. That looks. I saw that movie. I was like, that looks pretty good to me. But Disharmony, Tom.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I think this is my second favorite palate cleanser of the series.
All right, that's a good question. You're talking about breather episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always, someone mentioned like this is the episode that follows Epiphany. That's true. But
everything, in this season, we've had, I guess you could say, three kind of palate. Although I really think Guys Will Be Guys is a genuine palate cleanser. And since it's the Shroud of Ramon is too soon after Guys Will Be Guys to be considered a palate cleanser.
Yeah, this is a real
timing
palate issue.
Cleanser.
Yeah, there's a timing issue with when to drop one of these and when they work and when they feel a little bit off. Like we've hit pause on the arc.
Yeah,
you don't want
but
that
this
feeling.
one's perfectly placed.
Yeah. Well, and I mean the other thing too is arguably Epiphany is the episode that followed Reprise. If you take the courtyard sequence out of Epiphany, it is a very light, fluffy episode. It does have that courtyard scene.
Yeah.
But Reprise is the one that has that dark, weighty, depressing but
I can
despair. Reprise feels like despair.
Yeah, I can consider kind of Reprise and Epiphany as a part 1, part 2 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really flow together.
Yeah.
Very well. Everything in Disharmony is a delight. Angel getting getting his desk, that Harmony shows up, and the scene with Harmony and Cordelia in Cordelia's apartment, all that stuff is just, I just find absolutely delightful.
Mercedes McNabb is really like, when I was growing up, she was kind of a fixture by way of the Addams Family movies.
Right. Yeah.
And but I remember her being in a number of other things, and then being in Buffy, and then being a big part of Angel. It looks like she decided to stop acting in 2011, and hasn't done anything since. It just feels like a bummer to me because her timing is so good. But maybe she just was like, it's enough. I'm done. Found something she considered more meaningful to do with her time.
Yeah. I love the cameo. Willow's cameo.
Jack mentioned that scene was might be a little gay panicky, but I don't. It doesn't feel like the normal. Maybe it's because gay panic scenes I'm used to occurring between two men.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels strangely different to me. It feels like more of a hijinks, confusing what are we actually talking about kind of thing. But I get that it's there. I do get that it is is there. It's just Lonnie had never seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and
I've never seen that either.
Yeah, well, it's a cultural touchstone, and you're not really missing anything, right?
Yeah.
The second one is the one that I think is worth watching. But if you're gonna bother to watch the second one, I think you should watch the first one. But there is textbook gay panic in that movie where the two of them realize that one of them isn't dead, and they get up and hug each other, and then they back up and drop the F-bomb. Making fun of each other for being gay in that scene, and then the movie moves on. And of course, now this was 1980, whatever it was when the movie was made. Now that is a thunderous thud And I suppose, like, I don't know what I'm arguing here for. I'm sure there there's a wide gradient of what would constitute gay panic. So I'm sure that the Cordy scene falls under the banner, but it didn't stand out like that to me until Jack mentioned it.
Yeah, but and then the scene back in the Hyperion when they're researching the cult and and Harmony is popping her gum and just driving Wesley absolutely up the wall, and it just their comedy there is just golden, and this is actually I think my favorite Harmony episode of the entire.
So you mentioned your favorite palate cleanser episode. What second favorite? What's your other one?
Smile Time.
All right, yeah. Is it Smile Time for me, or is it Spin the Bottle? Because Spin the Bottle has the added benefit of being in the dreariest, darkest season of the show.
Yeah.
So boy, does it feel like a necessary reprieve.
Oh, very much
at that point. And Smile Time of the season hasn't quite gotten to the dark levels that it's going to.
Right, but it's
a better episode.
It's a better episode, yes. Yeah. But Disharmony, I think, is the most perfectly placed one in the series.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And of course, Doug is just a delight, absolute delight. It's like
I'd be interested to hear the conversations that went on in the writer's room after they were done with Epiphany, because they've done so much heavy, dark stuff and not another one until the end of the season, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like the entire end of this season is a breather from all of the Gray Angel dark stuff they were doing before that, which they did sexual trauma, assaults. They did the holy cow. Was it necessary? It's just interesting. It may be the lightest string of episodes in the Buffyverse from here to the end of the series, or to the end of this season.
Yeah. And I love the little bit when Gunn comes into the Hyperion and he sees Harmony and waves at her. She's she smiles and waves and delights, and Wesley says, "This is Harmony. She's a vampire.
Don't we kill him anymore?
Don't we kill him anymore?"
Yeah, they're all so good with comedy.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to throw out about Disharmony?
No, I think that's good. I'm good with it. Yeah.
All right, good deal. Well, before we go over to Lady Eternal, let's take a 5-minute stretch break. Talk amongst yourselves. And I turned the lighting up because the sun set and I was looking a bit creepy. You didn't need to know that. I don't know why I say my thoughts out loud. I will be right back with you.
We treasure your thoughts, Ian.
It's literally your channel.
Great.
Okay, somebody mentioned the Shroud of Ramon, and I lost my mind, and now I'm just.
Oh no!
It's funny.
George's
I know jokes.
Serenity now.
All right.
At least it ruins less of the season than Triangle does. Like Triangle wrecks so much stuff. It's like that teleport spell ruins so much.
I like
continuity messed up.
Yeah, I like Triangle a lot.
Triangle's
Well, that's the
okay.
thing. Like we like some episodes that people hate. It's just how it works.
That's true, Boris. That's
Yep.
Hey, Sarah, what's up? We haven't seen you in a little bit.
Well, I actually didn't think I was going to make it because I was at dinner with my dad, and then it was 7, and I was like, all right, that's fine. And then Josh messaged me, hey, it's not full. And I was like, okay. So I don't have anything prepared, but I do have my one take to give on the Soul Canon, because if there's one thing I want to make clear, it's my Soul Canon position.
Yes, please.
Sarah, I've literally been writing notes while we've been having this discussion because ideas have finally been kicking into my head. I've been trying to figure out what I was going to say all day.
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of times, like I like not going first because then people say stuff and I'm like, okay, no, I got it. Things come together as you listen. It's fun to
Going
listen.
first and going last both suck. Sorry, I cut you there.
No, I really wish. I know, like the format, it's hard as it is, but I wish we could do like a proper like high school Socratic seminar. Like everyone can just talk with each other. You know what I mean? Like we could be like, oh, to jump off your point, and then like ask, you know what I mean?
That'd be mad.
One person gives their speech, another person gives their speech. I know for time reasons and chaos it would not work, but how I would love to just sit with you all in a room for like 2.5 hours and just go.
2.5, more like 4.5, right?
I was trying to like,
I very much agree.
yeah,
Because at least an hour and a half of that would be kibitzing before the
I mean,
discussion.
we'd spend at least an hour gushing, and then we'd get to the
Oh my God,
serious
Jack, your hair looks so great.
Like that.
No, please.
Well, Jack, looking at your family behind you, now I understand where you get that luxurious hair.
All those girls.
Exactly.
Lexi's like the mother, the youngest one. Never mind, I'm sorry.
Wait, but
Great.
Sarah, what was your soul cannon thing? I want to know.
We'll get to that later.
My turn, girl.
Oh, you're saving it. Okay, I'm sorry.
No spoilers.
I thought I was like, wait, she still has to say what she has to say.
Yeah, well, I kind of
Break
typed
for
it
a
in the
second.
chat. I say it every time, but this adds more evidence to my point that I just need it. It just needs to be clear how I feel.
Gotcha.
TLDR is a lot. I think it's a lot simpler than people make it out to be. I think it's confusing because there's just a lot of weird exceptions, but the actual like rules are pretty straightforward. But just wait for like 10, 15 minutes and you'll
Got
get the full, yeah.
Sorry, Chad.
every time
we
I
do not have the ability to turn the alarm off. None of us are at Ian's place.
I could probably
Every
run
time-
around. I mean, I'm actually Denver's big. That wouldn't work. I could just yell Ian, and then maybe like someone.
he'll be back.
I have no idea.
Oh,
Every
for a
time I think
pizza.
I've got the soul thing figured out, somebody brings up something that ruins it, and I'm like, okay.
Don't
now
worry,
I
Jack.
gotta
I got
go.
you. Remember when you were like, "Ooh, normal again," and I was like, "I got
It's-
you."
Look,
And then we
you,
fixed
you
normal again.
did, and it helped, but I thought about it more, and it's still there.
No,
It's
okay.
still-
No, we're gonna have to rehash. Don't worry. It's been like 2
yes,
years.
we need more
Physics.
debriefing there.
Yeah.
It
Don't worry. I
doesn't-
got you. I've thought about this universe too much. I have a solution for
It's a-
everything. Don't worry about
It's
it.
a master. It's a masterpiece, but it messes with me so much.
Don't worry about it.
Okay,
You'll be normal. again.
I'll be in touch. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
I
be in
got
touch.
you.
Apologies to everyone in the stream. I meant to turn off my mic and instead turned off the audio for everyone who is speaking and then left the alarm on. So everyone in the stream's just been hearing an alarm. You guys have been doing some grade A vamping on my behalf, and it was all for naught. So
Best
That's okay. We've been
YouTuber
having fun
ever.
anyway.
We have. Nobody heard my George Costanza impression.
I mean, it's officially a Passion of the Nerd stream, you know. So
It is.
we just needed that.
And you know, we've all basically determined that we actually need to have a little Passion of the Nerd weekend con so that we can all get together and have a little Socratic, meet and greet and talk about everything after we finish gushing over the fact that we're all in the same space. Jack and Sarah came up with it, and I just happen to agree.
Well, Jack and Sarah always have my back. I appreciate it, and we're thinking next time. Lonnie and I were thinking of doing a collaborative panel, at the Denver Comic-Con, but we both have too much on our plates this year, so we're gonna do that next year, and maybe we can organize a meetup, for everyone involved at the time. If you feel like popping over, and Ian's himbo moment. Thank you, Ren. All right. The first time I heard that term, it was being applied to me. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to complain about a shoe that fits. Lady Eternal.
Hi, Ian.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, we're doing pretty well. Puppy's finally asleep.
That's a good deal. Our little squirrel cat fell off the thing while she was sleeping last night and then had a nightmare and jumped on me twice and slept on my neck.
Oh.
So it's amazing how much personality they have. And the other thing too is that I mean, we know dogs dream, but that cats dream and that cats have nightmares is such a they have so much personality. It's weird, but yeah,
They really do.
Well, I'm glad you got the puppy to sleep.
Yes, just in time. So there's a couple of interesting little tidbits in this that I picked up on when I was rewatching it. First of all, Doug, there are 3 callbacks to Buffy in his spiel.
Interesting. Okay.
Because he, first of all, when he's doing his first initial rundown, he says that every single one of the vampires in the audience has it in them to be the best vampire. Not just any vampire, but a master. Then you have the humans in the cage, which is like at the bronze in the harvest, and the
wish.
The wish.
Yeah.
From the bronze. And what the master wanted to do in that whole automated scenario, it's very much a callback to that. And then in his second round, when Harmony is observing, in his second scene, when Harmony is observing everything, he's talking about with every ascension, there are rewards. You get to go eat a human.
So you wonder if he's a sunny delight.
You kind of do.
Yeah. It's interesting the connections that are there.
It was striking to me when I was watching it that, wait a minute, that's some very deliberate callbacks, some very disconnected things when it comes to the rest of this episode.
Well, and I mean, the ascension was a very specific term for within the show lore. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But it doesn't surprise me at all that we have been talking about Harmony and Angel having parallels in this episode, because and why is Harmony one of the people that's exempt from getting killed? Because Cordelia is still Buffy's shadow self.
Okay.
She's one of Buffy's shadow selves, and Cordy can't kill Harmony any more than Buffy can kill vampires that she has a personal connection to.
Interesting.
Because if you think about, somebody brought up Jesse, Buffy never killed Jesse.
Yeah, Xander did.
Xander that killed Jesse. Buffy was only able to kill Angel when it was him or the world, and she had reaccepted her Slayer calling. She was only able to kill Ford because he was literally willing to sacrifice her and dozens of other innocent people right to her face. And he was going to die. He was going to die anyway, but he was going to sacrifice people to become a vampire. But she wasn't able to kill Drew. She wasn't able to kill Angelus. She hasn't killed Spike, and she didn't kill Harmony.
Well, okay. So you think that's a deliberate? Tell me where you were going with that. I was tracking all of those examples.
I really think there's a deliberate parallel there between the fact that because Cordy is Buffy's shadow self, as Cordelia is moving into a realm that is more like Buffy, with the visions, with the fighting of the demons, with all of that, she's moving further into that world. There are parallels back to who Buffy is and how much alike the two of them are.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about the end of the episode where Harmony and her have the fight, Harmony's like, that's aimed at my throat. That's not going to kill me. No, it's just going to hurt like hell. This is the one that's going to kill you. It would fit in perfectly with something that Buffy would do in a fight.
It's a very Buffy line, yeah.
And then, of course, there's the fact that you go through the whole episode where Angel is fumbling and he's trying to figure out what to do, and he's completely awkward and he doesn't know how to make things better with her. And at the end of the episode, he's like, I'm just going to, give her time, this, that, the other thing. And then she goes freaking out because he's bought her clothes. He went and bought her all new clothes, and he's instantly forgiven. And he's done this thing. And it's very much kind of goes back to when Buffy and Willow would make up and they would go get very, very sugary mochas, or that heart of Buffy that's still the teenager, the socialite, the I like clothes and I like these things. It's very much paralleling the two of them there in this episode. It's really interesting.
Well, the other thing I like too is that doesn't feel like it undermines any sort of development for Cordy, because she still needed the journey with Harmony in this one to see the difference between the two of them. And so, whether it was the clothes or whatever it was, she's still the one. It's still her power. She's still entitled to make the choice of whether or not to forgive Angel. It's just he knows a particular way back into her heart with that little bit that I think is really endearing. So,
and it does also touch back to the fact that she is no longer the rich girl. She can't just afford to go buy clothes whenever she wants to anymore, like she could as a teenager.
Well, the other thing I feel weird about is the instant I saw that, I was like, that's Judy's money from Are You Now or Have You Ever? Like, where else is he getting the cash from? I mean, Angel obviously has untold resources that allowed him to invest in art and all of that for his place when he was in Sunnydale in season 2. But those were all new. So that was the first thing I thought of, was like, that's that bag of cash that I read an interview with Tim that said we're supposed to assume that he gave Judy's cash back at the end of Are You Now or Have You Ever? But we don't see that, because it's the moral thing to do, and Angel's a moral character, but we don't see that actually happening. And then him buying a big pile of Cordy's got to have expensive tastes to be that pleased with his shopping haul.
And that was a lot of clothes too.
Yeah, that was a lot of clothes.
But it was very interesting to see that parallel to Buffy in this episode, especially knowing later about how close Angel and Cordelia get before everything goes off the rails. It's kind of building to this idea that what drew him to Buffy, he's seeing echoes of in Cordy. And as much as the two of them are not the same person, the fact that they have these similarities by the time it gets to that point, it does make a little bit of sense why he would be drawn to her after she's gone through this process where he wasn't when she was, in Sunnydale. Yeah,
from the alcoholic metaphor, Buffy and Cordy have both definitely taken turns as his sponsor. And in The Prodigal, when she says it wasn't you, Angel, they were just dreams. She's playing a similar role as, and the powers sent this for you, not for anyone else. She's playing a similar space as Buffy did in Amends, in sort of calling on his better reforming self. So and it's interesting. The whole shadow self, that given that Faith comes along in season 3 and Buffy has a handful of shadow selves, and sort of like the Jungian process of individuation says that she at some point absorbs that aspect of herself to become her full and complete identity. I don't know. It means that I struggle with the idea that Cordy continues in that role onwards. But definitely the trappings of, because they were set up as parallel identities early on, the trappings of that setup remain at this point, certainly.
Mm-hmm. And you actually teed up a good segue for me, so thank you for that.
Sure.
When it comes to the alcoholism metaphor, there's also a very nice little nugget for that in this episode, where Harmony is standing there asking Angel, how can he stand it? And she starts, expounding on the virtues of drinking human blood. And it's very much that, it puts me in mind of a scene from The West Wing when John Spencer is talking to another character, and he's talking about the feel of a good glass in your hand with, a thick one with a heavy base. like the sound of ice when it's being dropped from just the right height, the virtues of Johnny Walker Blue, which is 60-year-old Scotch, and just the rhythm of his voice and delivery in that was also very similar to Mercedes McNabb talking about drinking human blood to Angel in this. And I was like, the parallels were just shouting in my ears, and Josh has been gesticulating wildly, so he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Lonnie and I didn't make it. I don't think we finished West Wing season 3, so I'll have to go back and have a look. Side note, though, I love erotic monologues about things that are patently unerotic.
Yes, yes. And of course, when you have the inherent eroticism that vampires have taken on in recent years, and the fact that vampires essentially are ourselves, but as the ultimate alpha predator of the human race, it has that whole context, the hunter and the hunted and the whole thing. But just watching Angel's face through her talking about that, and watching him, like, you can see in the acting that David is doing in that scene that it's very much I'm not really resisting. I'm just not thinking about it. Stop right now. Oh, distraction.
Yeah.
So it's a fun little episode. I mean, I'm of the age that, we grew up with those MLMs everywhere, and we saw all the trappings of that. And
I was talking to Jack. I was in a self-help cult for a little while when I was a teenager, and it was the trappings, down to that guy's performance, the trappings of that warm, affable nature, and just all you got to do is this, and it's going to be wonderful. Just feels so familiar and disgusting.
And Harmony is also one of those types of people that they like to show on television as being uniquely susceptible to those kind of situations. Anybody can be susceptible to a particularly charismatic leader given the right circumstances and the right time. It doesn't happen to only just one particular personality.
Of course, yeah.
But considering the personality that they especially were trying to highlight here, with how lost she was and how she only attaches to strong personalities, they're very much following that trope of it was almost a foregone conclusion that she was going to try to hook up with this and betray them instead of doing the right thing, because the right thing is harder. This is essentially the vampire equivalent of a get rich quick scheme. So it's this wonderful nuanced, it feels very much like cotton candy, but cotton candy is very dense when you think about it. There's the strands are all intermixed, and it's just a lot of fun.
I love, it just works really well. Well, I do need to move on. Is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode before I do?
I love the fact that Gunn was the one that wanted the cappuccino at the beginning when he was ordering coffee. And I have to agree that the reference of the gay panic scene,
Mm-hmm.
the at the end where she's like, you have like a gay guy's taste in clothes, they're kind of thud lines.
Yeah,
they're really very late 90s, early 2000s that just they don't age well.
Well, and Cordy is kind of written as the edgier character that can speak with language that's a little more edgy than the other ones, and so she gets the lion's share of those lines that have aged poorly. She called Doyle the R word a couple of times in the first season. There are a number of, but Jack and I were talking about it, and then more and more, like, we were looking at this episode's over 20 years old, but since this episode has aired, people have graduated college, that's insane. So, I more and more, I just kind of, just reach a space of, from what I do, knowing that you have to acknowledge it, you have to point it out. That is a part of the process of examining these cultural texts of the time. But I also kind of accept as a fan that there's just going to be a certain amount of that stuff that just ages poorly. And there are a couple of thuds in this one for sure.
Mm-hmm. But I also do love that the red light that he wanted them to flip on so that they could see the bird was for a meat market.
Oh, I missed that detail, but yeah, I think I need to start doing a solo rewatch before doing this on stream to definitely be on the same page as everyone. Well, I appreciate you. Let me go on to Jack, and then I'm gonna go to Jen. And then I think Sarah C, you will wrap us up. Unless I've missed someone, which I may have missed someone. We'll start with Jack. Jack!
Hello, Puppet.
Hi. Where are you?
Hi.
Replace pin.
I'm right here.
It's the
I never
story
left you, Ian.
of a man named Jack.
If I was a Brady Bunch character, who would I? Oh no, I'd be Marshall, wouldn't I? I didn't even finish the sentence before the answer came to me. So disharmony, Ian.
Disharmony.
Disharmony. This episode is, it's funny following up Epiphany with this, which is something that the Buffyverse does a lot, following something really deep and meaningful up with something funny and vice versa. Like we go from smile time to freaking hole in the world. Like what the hell is that? That is brutal and awful and it's kind of genius too.
The strange thing about Smile Time is I love the I mean, you're talking about the music of the season, right? The movement that follows the last one, all of that, and the timing of the music is very important. And I think that it's interesting when it works, and it's interesting when it doesn't. The examples where it doesn't more often stand out to me. Where I think I Was Made to Love You.
I Was Made to Love You. Yeah.
It sort of got dwarfed by the shadow of what followed it.
Because that in itself is quite an interesting episode.
Yeah, it's also
it's vastly overshadowed.
It's light, and when we talked about it having a huge break between the other episodes, I got a lot more out of it. There's a lot going on there, but it's so dwarfed and overshadowed. And yet there's, like, to me, the greatest following episode has to be Tabula Rasa. So you have Once More with Feeling, and then Tabula Rasa right after it, which is not
they go together
as good,
so
but
well.
it is so good. Once More with Feeling to me is one of the greatest episodes of television, and Tabula Rasa is one of the best Buffy episodes. Those are two vastly different scales.
I think they're neck and neck though, because I love both of those episodes.
Well, I mean, you get to the thing that it's utterly subjective scale anyway.
Yeah, and Tabula Rasa's ending, holy crap! Like, the feels, and you know me, Ian. I love the feels. I love me some feels. And the thing with Hole in the World, that's particularly brutal for me because I love Fred. So it's so yeah, it's so following that up with following Smile Time up with that is just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's very strange. But I mean, always the comedy, the drama and the comedy paired together. The Buffy's fighting and jealous, and he's saying, "You can't do it. You can't kill me." And there's water raining down, and it's very dramatic.
And then she kicks him in the balls.
No, and then it cuts to Seth Green going, arm, which is a wonder, and yet works. It's a wonderful comedic bit, and that cut encapsulates so much of their mentality to the
doesn't
episodes.
She kick him in the nuts?
She does. It cuts back to the fight. I'm just saying, within that sequence, you're probably right that the kick follows that bit of dialogue. I'm just saying that dramatic confrontation is occurring. You know what the worst part was? Pretending that I loved you. And then cutting to arm. That mentality to me of that cut encapsulates the question of when this works and when it doesn't.
Right. Well, the Buffyverse does those cuts randomly often, and there's one in this episode. It's Wes is talking to Angel about Cordy, and he says she has a lot of pain to work through, and then there's a crash cut to Cordy laughing hysterically. So yeah, the Buffyverse does that a lot, and I like it.
Well, the show is built on. I mean, it's after hammering it for 8 years, it becomes a little cliche, but the show is built on subverting tropes, subverting.
It was very subversive for its time, not so much now, but for its time, it was very subversive. And I mean, this show influenced so much that came after it is very seminal in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't have a great deal of notes because
I don't either. That's why I feel like I'm not helping you guys today because
it's this episode. Look, it's fine and I like it. But I would put it in the bottom tier simply because there's just so much better than it. But it's fun, it's silly, and I do enjoy it.
Well, you and I are the cry guys, right? We both like a good cry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
they're cry guys. That could be our ship name.
The cry guys. And that's I think that there are reasons you return to certain material. And if I'm honest with myself, the reason I return to Buffy is surprise and innocence and the gift.
It's the feels, not for the not for the laughs.
Yeah,
even as a horror fan, I don't go to Buffy for horror because it's not very scary to me.
Right. Yeah, it's hurt me. Please hurt me, Buffy. Yes, hurt me good. And so the comedy is more of an added bonus. But if you're not in that, but that's me, and that's my subjective taste and my subjective interest.
It's still incredibly funny, though. It's still a very
absolutely.
fun
But
show.
To me, that's like an added bonus to emotional payoffs that are rich with substance, and that is why I come back to the show so often. But like, I wouldn't consider myself a fan of tearjerkers or shows that are known for making you cry every single episode, so there is a distinction in the flavor of what you look for in media there.
For me, it's very specific. I guess it's down to what it is, I think. I mean, I love me a good cry, okay? Let's see. I love the idea of Dennis protecting Cordy. He slams the door when Harmony goes into her room. I like that a lot.
Dennis
I
if
wish
only.
Dennis didn't just slowly fade, I wish they kept him around because having him, it was just a fun character that they could do anything with and they didn't have to pay anyone. Like, it's a win-win.
Yeah, and there's such an obvious place for his story to have closure. In season 5, the episode that is the afterlife where Spike gets stuck in the afterlife and there's the dude trying to send him to hell instead of you just have
Dennis could have been like his guide or something.
Yeah,
oh my
or
God.
Dennis saves Spike and goes on his behalf or whatever it may be, and there's closure for Dennis's. You give him a heroic ending, closure for his character instead of just disappearing.
Is a fan fiction that needs to be written.
Yeah. Like that guy acts as a beacon for the lost souls of LA, and they end up drawn to Wolfram and Hart so that he can sacrifice them and stay in the afterlife instead of going to hell. And that's how Dennis gets drawn there. You know?
This just tells me that you should have been on the writing team.
No, it's so easy to be in the peanut gallery. It's so easy.
Plus, they would have lots of restrictions and conflicting ideas.
And we've had 20 years of hindsight and bandying these questions around. There's a huge difference between the afterthought that we give it and creating it on the fly.
And on the whole gay panic scene, I'm glad.
By the way, I'm glad you called it out. I'm glad you said something because it didn't occur to me that that's what was going on in that scene. And it was.
Well, just to be clear, it's not the scene in the bedroom with Cordy and Harmony.
No, it's the telephone call.
The phone call. Yeah. And like in the bedroom, Cordy's very kind. She's very accepting. She doesn't freak out at
And that's
all.
why
And,
that kind of disappears for me a little bit, I think, is because there is that just kind of open-minded, compassionate interaction.
But the phone call, she doesn't completely freak out. She doesn't necessarily say, ooh, gross or anything like that, but something about it feels a little off. And
yeah, I think you're right. Again, I think there's probably a gradient of scale and that's the world's most unfortunate scale.
It's really not the worst example of it I've seen.
No, the Bill and Ted one that I mentioned is horrendous.
For some reason, it's always when it's in reference to a guy, which is, you know what? I'm not opening that can of worms. We all know what I'm getting. Yeah. But yeah, that I also love the contrast between like Cordy thinking that Harmony's coming out, but Harmony's actually trying to say that she's a vampire. I love that sort of back and forth between them. That's funny.
So that's such a simple metaphor too for that for that reveal to slide into every single time is the coming out metaphor. Have you tried not being a slayer?
Oh, yeah, that happens a lot.
It does happen a
lot. Angel and Wes bursting through Courtney's door, and Wes is like, "Get away from her foot." I just love that line. That really tickled me. And I love the idea of the vampire MLM.
I've never had a bunch of cotton balls shoved between every one of my toes. I gotta admit, it looks pretty luxurious, pretty relaxing.
Neither have I, and now I kind of just want to try it to see.
Yeah, that looks like something I want to have happen before I die.
Tactile way.
Yeah, just it looks like my toes have been missing some space from each other, and that's something I got to figure out.
When you and I finally meet in person, we will paint each other's toes and talk about boys, and it'll be wonderful.
Sounds good to me.
It'll be just amazing.
I do need to move on, bud. Is there one last thing you want to throw out about the episode?
Okay, so Harmony spills coffee on Cordy's keyboard, and it starts sparking and smoking and stuff. I've spilt many a liquid on keyboards, and that has never happened.
That's
unrealistic. 0 stars. That is BS.
That's classic. That's classic tech.
No, I like it. It's funny.
Mishandling.
It's stupid and funny, and but I just wanted to.
By the way, Ed Banger in the chat asks, and I saw Boris ask earlier, is the podcast coming back anytime soon? Jack and I have a standing meeting once a week to talk about things we need to edit, get done, record the following week. And a regular and constant item is this the week we're bringing back the podcast?
Basically, we've got a ton of stuff to get through before we get there. There is still a bit of a backlog of patron readings, and then I think after that we should have.
The other thing too is the thing that we were struggling with was the podcast was so unstructured that it took hours and hours and hours of our time to do one of them.
We would literally get online and be like, okay, so what are we doing today? So we'd spend like 2 hours just scripting and figuring it out.
And in my mind, a little bit
unsustainable.
The rewatches that we do for this hangout and the commentary tracks that have been coming out monthly are sort of a structured version of what we were doing for the podcast. Certainly, we reached personal levels with the stories and conversations we had in the podcast that I miss and would like to bring back at some point. But for the moment, I don't see that happening anytime soon, especially as this year branching into other content. Yeah. But it has to be something that
I would say at the very least is probably a couple of months away, maybe, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, let me go over to Jen. Jen.
Hey, Ian.
Hi. How you doing?
Not bad. Interesting week.
Good interesting or bad interesting?
Let's leave it at interesting.
All right, we'll leave it at interesting. Well, tell me about Disharmony.
Okay, yeah, this is a popcorn episode, obviously,
Mhm.
but I like it for a lot of reasons that have already been said. Uh, I find it interesting that I get Harmony Throw is yet another wrench in the soul cannon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, or maybe she's the bridge, as we talked about this time. You know, where Spike versus Angel feels difficult to parse out. You know, Harmony has her moments where, you know, you're rooting for her. You just want her to make the right decision, and then she falls for a multi-level marketing firm, and it doesn't work out. You know.
I will point out, considering the episode that follows this is a lot of like the issues with corporates in like this episode and next episode. They're both like, this is the sins what you are paying for to succeed type things.
Interesting. Okay, so you're thinking like it's foreshadowing a little bit of season 5?
A bit. Like the next episode's all about the two Wolfram and Hart leads. One wants the job because she doesn't want to get killed. The other one has an evil hand, which isn't really evil. But it's like she's the hard worker, she's the this. And in this episode we've got Cordy who's like who continues to say, my job is secretary work. She doesn't value herself well in Angel. She talks down about herself quite a few times in this episode.
Interesting.
Like first she talks negatively about herself, what her job is. Then she's like, I didn't feel good about who I was in high school. I feel better about when I'm doing things like helping the helpless thing.
Well, I mean, that's definitely a part of her arc for sure.
So it was brought up that Cordy's still technically a representation of Buffy. And considering where Buffy is in her arc, where her self-esteem is, it actually works.
Yeah. Given that the gift is the conclusion of the 5-year arc, the timing's not terrible for sure.
No, so you've got a couple of little. There's a lot more. They're hidden nuggets that sort of play on other stuff, but they're there if you can find them. Like there's stuff that is leading for next episode. There's like this episode is a huge foreshadow of the next episode, and yet it isn't.
Right. It feels standing on its own, just perfect. It's rare for them to be that elegant. With this, I think under normal circumstances, this would feel like one of the table setting episodes where you feel sort of the creak of the arc. But maybe that's a benefit of Angel's split seasons.
But I will, that's one of the things, and I will say this though, like in this episode, they do with Harmony better than they ever did with Spike when they were trying to have him fill the Harmony role.
Say that again. Oh, yeah.
Like, if I kept watching this, it's like, this is Spike in bad episodes of Spike, and this is Anya when Anya's good, and not in good episodes of Anya. It's like, this is the combination of Spike and Anya, which is sad.
Maybe, yeah, definitely, maybe season 2 Spike for sure, but yeah. You can see a little bit of that for sure.
I think not season 2 Spike, season 4 Spike. That's the one Spike I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is very much season 4 Spike when there's like, I keep telling people I'm bad.
Can't any of you damn little Scooby Gang remember that I hate you all?
Exactly. Or Anya's like, these people are stupid. Like you have I have very this episode's like a popcorn movie in that I'm like up and down, a bit of an emotional yo-yo off this episode, which is weird because this is a fun, stupid episode.
Well, I think it also speaks to Mercedes McNabb's performance. There have been plenty, Harmony also has had plenty of moments where we've gotten to feel bad for her. Being a vampire sucks. You know, like, there's so many great little moments like that.
You got to say this about Whedon and Co. They make you feel bad for their villains.
Yeah, that's something that drives me a little nuts with Spike is the constant empathy the show creates for him. But I feel it. I definitely feel it, and it makes him more interesting. That's for sure.
And you feel it for Harmony.
Yeah.
You feel it for almost every hell. You even feel it for the mayor when it comes to Faith, which is, considering how outlandishly camp that character is, he's only not camp when he's in respect of to Faith.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, is I love when characters are revealed through each other. And the mayor and Faith, specifically their conversation over the box where she talks about being the brave one to jump off the tower, jump into the water, and no one could do it, and he says, "Not you, though." The warmth and the intimacy that he says that with is so beautiful. And yet he's about to eat a bunch of bugs and become a giant snake and kill all of the Sunnydale inhabitants. You know, it is one of the reasons why the shows are so great, for sure.
I will say this episode does one thing that I really like well.
Okay.
This episode passes the Bechdel test. They can talk about stuff beside the two girls are just relaxing, painting the nails, and not talking about boys for a few seconds.
It's Angel fails by certain measurements quite often. So it's nice to have a scene every once in a while where you feel like, oh, okay, good job.
It's weird because when Fred comes to the show, Cordy's practically written out of the show at that point, but they pair her with Angel, but they never really give them a ton of Cordy and Fred scenes, so there's not that girl bonding there. Yeah. Fred's always paired with a guy.
Yeah,
she's paired with Wesley, and then she's paired and Gunn and Angel, but she's never really mixed with a girl at all.
I have to admit, it was super nice, refreshing to hear Tim Minear at the last Angel discussion acknowledge. I'm not sure if he acknowledged mystical pregnancies or just something that had aged poorly about the show. It was nice to hear that. Oh, okay, you know, because like we experience these things on rewatch emotionally in the present, and these things are artifacts for them. They are ancient for them. You know, so it was nice to get the perspective of one of the writers hearing like, yeah, we could have done better there. Or
at least had one of the guys be pregnant once.
Right. You know, yeah, and that's you highlighted one of my I think that what's her name? What's the actress's name? I'm terrible. Fred.
Don't ask me. I can't.
Amy Acker. I think Amy Acker is phenomenal. But I think that Fred's character is done dirty a little bit throughout the show. And boy, does that
more than a little dirty.
Boy, does that help Wes and make Wes's arc interesting. But what could have been, you know, is all I'm saying. That doesn't justify it. And you know, maybe if Illyria had come along a little bit earlier. But then, well, anyway, we'll get to season 5. We'll get to Fred. We just need to get Fred here. And I agree. The show, Ray mentioned earlier that the show kind of starts for her during the Pylea arc because Fred arrives. It is so interesting how long Angel took to find that sense of familiar. You know, I said in a video once that my favorite kinds of shows are ones where you would watch the characters standing in line waiting for a bus. You know, or sitting at the DMV. And Angel doesn't become that show quite until Fred arrives. And then sometime around season 3, they find that same sort of chemistry and camaraderie that I really treasure. But anyway, Jen, I'm sorry. I took you a bit of a tangent there. What else you got?
Well, I agree with you about that. But I think the biggest issue with this episode is the fact that I wanted more Willow.
Yeah.
It's like such a tease. It's like we get 10 seconds. I wanted a little bit more of it, and I agree with the. It's weird. How do you have one scene where you're like, I'm accepting of gay, and the next second is gay panic? I don't get how you have both in the same episode from the same character.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just old, but I get it. The one that I was thinking about this episode that hit me was Xander never makes an appearance. And I think that when
neither does Giles.
Right. But when Giles has a hidden cameo on a telephone call. But when you're breaking down stereotypes, when you're breaking down old archetypes, I think that it's good to put something in their place. And, I know that Xander raises the ire of a lot of the fandom, and I 100% get it and hope that I have spoken to those as they have instances as they've arrived on the show. But he and Angel getting to explore maybe a little bit of like, what is healthy masculinity? What does it mean to be, what does modern masculinity look like, where it is healthy and compassionate and progressive and balanced or whatever, I think is a strangely missed opportunity. Instead, you have, Fred's arc being focused around the men in her life for the story. So,
You just made me think of something, which makes me think of two things. One, Xander would have actually been better off if he got shipped over to Angel.
Yeah.
He would have suited this crew well, especially Xander that you see that talks about his time, at the beginning of season 4. Like that Xander, I could see he's a good match for early stages Wesley, for one. Like he'd be better off at Angel because his arc sort of both Willow and we're on the wrong show, but I will say this: both Willow and Xander, their arcs kind of stall. Xander eventually does the carpentry thing, but he does a long spell where he does nothing. And Willow, we see some glimpses of college, but we don't even know what she's actually pursuing for her degree.
Right. Yeah.
Like, neither one of both those characters all kind of just stop at once graduation hits.
I think I can see that a little bit more with Xander. I think Willow and Tara's relationship does a lot more for Willow's character. My fix for leaving Xander on Buffy was to make Xander Riley in season 4 and have him in the military and be a part of that whole deal, and make Riley Forrest, and that's the character that Buffy dates during that season. But then all of that arc channels through a character that we actually care about, and so on and so forth. But yeah, Xander sort of becomes aimless in 6 a little bit, and then both Willow and Xander, to me, feel a little bit adrift in season 7. But anyway, Jen, I apologize. I do have to move on. Is there one last thing you want to throw out about the episode?
No, as I said, I'm a bit it's for such a fun episode. I'm a bit all over the place with this one.
All right, well, good deal. Let me go over to Sarah C. Sarah.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Wow, I was so loud I echoed. Oh, I am echoing. Okay, there I stopped echoing.
Whenever, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. No, I'm fine. Hi, how are you?
What's up? I'm good.
Thank you for it's not easy being the caboose. So
someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it. I appreciate it. Wherever you want to pick up. Notes about this one, notes about the arc.
Yeah, I wasn't super planning on coming to this one because I didn't think I'd be able to, so I don't have an itemized list. But I do have my two things that come immediately to mind. One, I'll start on the lighter end. I always find it so funny. Like, I've just laughed about this scene and the delivery of it with my friends because it's such a bizarre inclusion. The choice to make Cordy like kind of homophobic is really funny to me. It's just such a like, why? Like, I thought she was a great big lesbo. Like, who talks like that? It's so funny to me. Like, it loops around from being like offensive and weird to just, it's funny.
Yeah.
So maybe people talk like that in 2000, but it's so funny. But it's also messed up because it's like you have Willow on the phone who on Buffy is like doing this groundbreaking thing for TV, and on Angel it's like Willow likes girls. It's like, all right.
Yeah. So, I hadn't thought about that. Cordy doesn't know in that sequence, does she?
Well, that's the implication is that she's like, oh my God, Harmony tried to come on to me, and then they don't even. I don't know if it's censored because Willow doesn't say anything. She goes, oh, really? Good for you. We're supposed to hear, actually, I'm dating a woman or something, know? So it's weird that they also don't say it. It's just such a weird dissonant thing that, again, on the sister show, again, they're doing this groundbreaking thing and like, whatever. And here it's still just like that's so weird and funny.
Yeah, I hadn't put two and two together that is the joke that Willow, that's what made it's the sequence a little bizarre to me. Is like, in my mind, she was talking to Willow and she knew, but the joke is that she didn't know and talked like that. So that makes it much more clear.
Yeah. She hasn't seen Willow since high school. And so like she's on the phone being like, oh my God, how crazy was it that like Harmony tried to like come on to me? You know how those predatory lesbians are, not really. Yeah. But like, and then Willow's obviously like, well, and then she's so shocked, like, oh, really? Good for you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sure it's going great on your end. Anyway, it's just a weird little sequence. I mean, this is neither here nor there, but I'm going to try to make my caboose entertaining. I made an edit because there's a lot of just like bizarre, like the tonal stuff that's like aged poorly, like with like gay jokes in the Buffyverse. Even on the better days, I made it into a compilation with Lady Gaga's Born This Way. This is just me tooting my own horn. I think it's really funny because just seeing them all put together, like, I have no problem spanking men like in the same sequence as everything else. It's a whole mess, but it's funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one that really gets me. There's also I will move on from this. There was a really bizarre choice.
The one thing that springs to mind to me is like the first step on the journey of that within media is speaking about it but getting it wrong. Do you know what I mean? And that maybe I'm wrong about that, but I get why I have no problem spanking men is.
Oh no, that's just me laughing. I'm saying that.
Yeah. But there is a part of me that I'm like, at least it's in there. Like, as opposed to not say anything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Angel's a bi king. Like this is obvious to me. I'm just saying in the compilation of like people in the Buffyverse alluding to gayness is just the spectrum of just like really nice and wholesome, and then the rest is just like bonkers,
just all over the map.
Buffy and Xander trying not to say anything homophobic in family. They're like, yeah, Tara, you think there's gonna be a lot of Wiccas there?
The whole Wiccan thing.
You think we'll fit in with gay people, Wicca people? It's funny anyway.
No, I follow.
I think it's funny. Obviously, the whole sequence with her and Harmony is funny. It's the vampirism is both addiction and also like sex because you're addicted to people, and Carmilla, vibe flavor of whatever. So there's that. What I find particularly interesting about this episode, and the thing that I forgot until I rewatched, but is that little exchange that other people have touched on as well. The brief exchange with Wes and Harmony on the couch. And he's like, that's not your friend. And then they harken back to season 1 of Buffy, like that thing, it looks like your friend, but it's the demon that, and I love that little bit of like discursive continuity because as we've seen, so there's sort of two interpretations of what does it mean to be a vampire, and you'll get them from two different populations. One is people who have become vampires, and even in some crazy cases become vampires and regained aspects of humanity, whether through mystical pregnancies, soul curses, etc. And then there's people who study it, and so you have initially Giles, and then you have Wes, who are learned in the supernatural, who will say, well, a vampire, it looks like your friend, it talks like your friend, it has their memories, but it's an external demon that came from somewhere else, and it's taken over their body, right? And then you have the people who have become vampires, and again, in the very weird cases we have even gone back and forth a few times, Darla and Angel, who go, when I was evil, or I killed these people, etc., etc. So there is on one side a dissociation from the previous self, and on the other a sense of becoming a vampire is a deeply powerful experience, made me feel alive for the first time. So it was you. You know what I mean? So when we get that like weird detachment, like, no, it's some external thing that comes in and possesses, don't even worry. It makes sense to me, right? That it's once again, I don't know if this was intentional, but coming from people who A, have not had the experience, and B, who are researching it. And most specifically, right? If you are having to deal with this threat, right, on a very real basis, that it could happen to you, it could happen to someone you know, how much easier is it to tell yourself, oh, this horrible, violent thing that looks like my friend, that says things that my friend would know. No, that's not really them. That's just something with its memories, rather than that's my friend stripped of their humanity, stripped of their best parts, stripped of their conscience, right? How much easier is that to stomach, especially when you have to kill them? I didn't kill my friend. My friend was already dead. That's the thing that killed them, right?
Yeah,
they use that. But then when you take it practically, right, both when the show undertakes it practically, when we talk about identity and responsibility, and when the people themselves talk about it, it was, I did these terrible things when I became a vampire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you get it with Darla, you get it with Angel, you get it with Spike. And so I just think this is another like little anchor for me of like, it's Wes saying that. And obviously all this stuff. And then you have, all of the scenes, good and bad with, Harmony and Cordy's relationship. They're talking about their history. They're talking about very real things between them, right? Etc. So that is my little piece. It's a nice little glimmer of the same thread to me.
I think you highlighted a really interesting explanation for why 20 years later we're still arguing about the way the soul canon works, and that's because it's even written against itself. And not simply,
it makes perfect sense.
Well, I do as well. But what I'm saying is, like, we have people who join the group that don't, and conventional vampire fantasy, in as much as I'm familiar with it, takes the seed of identity perspective a lot of times with the soul one way. Actually, wait, no, it's different with the soul. Anyway, I'm not familiar enough with other vampire lore to. I'm going to say something inaccurate that way. But I think that's terrific the way. You're describing that it is set up in opposition to itself, the way it mechanically appears to work with the actual vampires that we're familiar with versus the way that it's explained from the very beginning are two very different things, so it makes sense that of course that we would be still arguing about it. And the other thing too is like just having written about Crush and Buffy talking about you can't love without a soul. And to me, that occurring as a coping mechanism, it's interesting. Like, yeah, that would be the explanation of the side that, I mean, I can't imagine a worse grief than losing a loved one. And so then being tasked to actually have to, they come back from the dead and have been tasked to have to remove them. Like, of course that would be an interpretation that you would create in order to be able to do that. So,
yeah,
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and like what you were saying, same thing. Even like, when you talk about, can vampires love, right? Discuss for 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing. But it's the same thing as like, first of all, when we're saying love, we're each meaning something different. So we'd have to start there. Can vampires what, right? Can vampires feel affection? Right. You know what I mean? First, you got to define what you're talking about, because that's going to change, right? So clearly by some definitions, but it's even then like, the idea of vampires can't love being like, as you sort of identified in your take, right? Something that obviously someone externally would tell themselves, again, because God forbid you've seen someone you care about become a vampire. and you still want to feel something good about them, you still want, and you say, well, they can't love me, right? Because that's easier. Maybe they can love, but in a way that's, not, the thing that I need, or the kind of love that we idolize, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But it's that same idea of like, there's two experiences, right? There's the supernatural thing that happens, and there's the people it happens to, and then there's people who watch it and react to it, right? Like as you do in a supernatural world. And so it makes sense that the people who aren't vampires would be like, oh, a segment of them at least would be like, especially the Watchers Council, who are tasked with being like, let's kill these people. Of course, you'd be like, yeah, your friend's already dead. You're looking at the thing that killed him. Easy, right? There's no moral quandary like, oh, this is them, but it's not really. Should I get? There's no gray area. Vampires can't anything. They're whatever. So I just think that's neat. I think it's neat. And I think, again, obviously when the show takes it seriously, when the show is like asking the real questions, when you have people, Angel, Spike, Darla specifically, it's clear it's them talking about who I was with a conscience, and what that conscience allowed me to become, because these things are linked, right? It affects the kind of choices you can make. We know this, right? Who was I when I could make these choices? Who was I when I could make different choices? And when I went back and forth because of, mystical metaphysics, because it's fun. Anyway, I mean, that's the gist. Everyone else has said everything else about the episode. It's neat. It's fun. I think weirdly enough, harmoniously enough, I am due to watch that on Wednesday with my friends. We haven't watched in a while because they've all been busy. So I think we're actually going to jump right into that. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good deal. Always great stuff. Let me view. No one not on camera that is hiding in the list. No, I think everyone, we talked with everyone. And we're close to the right time. Wow. Good deal. So in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about intervention. And then we're going to come back and do. So for a little while, I just wanted to remind everyone. So we're going to do Dead End and Belonging, but then we're going to take a break and watch the rest of the Buffy. We're going to do the rest of the Buffy episodes in a row to the end of the Gift. And then we're going to have a 4-hour rewatch stream to watch the entire Pylea arc all at once. And then we will do the patron hangout after that in 2 parts. Jack and I are not going to do a 4-hour stream and then come in here. I wouldn't give you guys the good energy that I would want to, but maybe the day before, we'll figure it out. So, but for a little while, kind of status quo from here. I'm working on a movie review that I'm hoping to have up in the middle of next week. And then we'll be hopefully live tweeting Thin Dead Line by the end of the week. And Jack and I did a commentary track for Back to the Future, which if you're in the Patreon tier that gets all of those for free, it's been added to the library. Otherwise, it's $1.99 on thepassionofthenerd.com. And Lonnie and I are recording we've recorded one for City of Angels, which was a weird discussion. And Lonnie and I are recording one for Twilight next week. Which again, we're going to keep growing that Patreon library. But again, $2. I figure it feels, a spicy chicken sandwich. And the other thing too is like, I know that not every one of them is going to have an appeal for everyone. So it seemed like the a la carte system for this kind of thing was the simplest one. All right, my friends, everyone in the stream, I will see you in 2 weeks. We appreciate your time.
Good night.
Have
Bye.
fun, everybody. Good night.
Boy.